Hello, good afternoon everyone, Forristicat here. Today I'm going to put forward my thoughts on Grand Theft Auto 5 following the completion, which I was completed last night. Okay, so I think first and foremost, the best aspect of this game is sort of an aspect which has sort of gone through every single stage of the Grand Theft Auto series as a whole. And that is just how big and massive the landscape and city is. I think that really is sort of like the hallmark, or the first thing I think about the game. Like, I just think about how huge it was. And I think if you just watch my previous video, you'll notice I said something like, the first time I played I was a little bit underwhelmed, but then once I realized, and this is similar to Skyrim or Fallout, when you look at a map and then you think, wow, all of this area just here is just like, this is one small dot on the map, and then you consider like how huge the map is overall, and it really sort of does overwhelm you, knowing that you can literally do anything you want. So I think that the best part of GTA 5 overall for me, following the completion of the main story mode, I haven't completed 100%, is definitely the whole hugeness and grandness, the grandiorness, even if that's a word, I'm not sure, of the whole game as a whole. So that's number one. I think the next thing I want to say following the completion is that there are a couple of interesting additions to gameplay mechanics here, and this may seem coming across as too nitpicky or whatever, but as much as they tried to implement a couple of new systems here, because they didn't push it just a little bit further, it felt a little bit like half-assed. And, fair enough, they're trying new stuff, fantastic. Like I said, like, you always want to be trying, pushing for new stuff in whatever medium it is. But in terms of this game, and for example, the heist missions come to mind. With the heist missions, okay, fair enough, fantastic idea that you're actually setting up these missions beforehand, and you sort of get them together step by step, and then it's actually a good feeling, like some of these missions later on where you have to like park like a car here, you have to mod something there, you have to steal this thing there, and then later on when you go on, you play the actual heist mission, you're using all the things that you set up, and you're like, oh, that's right, I parked that car there, oh, that's right, I put that drill, that sort of thing. Fantastic idea. However, for example, the addition of like selecting like your additional characters and stuff like gunmen or whatever, to me it just felt like it was sort of like just thrown in there a little bit, and fair enough, they sometimes stuff up, sometimes they don't stuff up, but it felt like if they just maybe pushed a little bit more with a little bit more sort of interactivity with sort of like the history behind these supporting players and stuff like that, like Chef or whatever, I think they went into a little bit of detail like that. But it's really like a double-edged sword that they really did push this game in so many ways, just in terms of like the sheer scope and detail of exactly what's actually been getting into, what exactly is inclusive within this game, that when you see like the same level of detail lacking in another area, you sort of think, well, they put all this detail into that area, why didn't they put detail into this area? And this is sort of I get a little bit spoiled for choice sort of thing, but there was a couple of times when I'm like, it'd be fantastic if we had like a conversation piece there, or it would be great if this happened there. Hard for me to explain, but hopefully you know where I'm coming from. What else have we got? Some closest winners popped up here. Well, we have the story, and I think that someone was actually talking about this at work, is that you have the character of Franklin, who the first couple of missions were okay, a little bit interesting, but then after a while the sort of interesting level of his character sort of dropped off a little bit, and it felt to me that they didn't really push that sort of like hood sort of like gangster Grove Street like, I guess, stereotype, for want of a better word, like a little bit farther, as they did in, say, San Andreas or whatever. And I felt like they're like, oh, this is cool. I mean, again, very ambitious for bringing these three sort of characters together, but like I said, Franklin's character did, I agree with the person at work, like the Franklin's character did seem a little bit sort of like non-fleshed out. Like, it would be nice to have like these street wars or whatever as you had in sort of San Andreas. It really did feel like they were like, okay, well, let's take like the hillbilly thing, and so there'll be a Red Dead Redemption sign aside to it. We'll have Michael's sort of Los Angeles Hollywood celebrity style, which would be a callback to your traditional Grand Theft Auto 4s, and we'll chuck a little bit of San Andreas in there, but just like a little splash, and that was sort of Franklin's side to it, because I think that at the end of the day, like, he's really just doing sort of everyday stuff, similar to your other sort of missions like Michael or Trevor or whatever, and I felt like that sort of potential for that character to actually do things that he should be doing as like a ghetto boy gangster or whatever, just actually didn't sort of get fulfilled. So that to me was like a little bit strange. I think my favorite character out of all of these characters is definitely Trevor. I mean, seriously, I mean, the first time you're introduced to this guy is like, fucking this like trailer trash, like doggy style, and then he like kills like a main character from past downloadable content, being Johnny, of course. And I think that it would be nice to maybe see like a reference to, say, Red Dead Redemption or something like that, or although there was a store called Redemption somewhere in the game, but maybe like a throwback to like the Ballad of Gay Tony, or more sort of connect. It was cool having that sort of lost MC sort of side quest, but I guess I would have liked to see them push some sort of more integration between all of these video games. Although don't get me wrong, there's sort of reference to like some European guy that sort of kicked up a stir in Liberty City that went dark. Mentioned by Lester was also a fantastic little bit of sort of a throwback to sort of connect these games overall. I think that some of these missions were a little bit repetitive in that like get this there, mod this car there, park it there, come back, and then you do it. I mean, the final mission, as crazy as it was, like I would have liked to have seen something a little bit more crazy. I mean, my favorite mission was like when you have to parachute on the building and you have to like infiltrate the FIB sort of agency there. That was probably one of my favorite mission. I think the whole storyline with Michael was great. I mean, him having these crazy kids, especially his son Jimmy or whatever, and Tracy or whatever, and then this crazy wife, pretty good. But I think that overall, when I look at all three of them, I could tell that the storyline always seemed to gravitate towards Trevor, purely because he's just this emotional, crazy basket case that he was really sort of pushing the story forwards. And I think that it would have been nice to sort of seen like the storyline of Michael more sort of more sort of detail in terms of like what happened to his family afterwards, after you rescue them from these crazy Merryweather sort of agents and stuff like that, when your house actually gets stormed. So I think like more missions between your daughter and your wife and stuff and Jimmy would have been nice. And I think that is sort of, I mean, I really didn't know what to expect, that they're dividing their storyline time between three characters. It's very difficult to sort of spend a fair amount of time on each one, so you are bouncing around a lot. Another nitpicky thing, sometimes when you go from one character to one character, as I mentioned in my initial sort of reaction video, sometimes you'll be like you might like switch to, say, Franklin, then switch back to Michael, and even though you were in one location with Michael like a second ago, all of a sudden he's like up north playing tennis or something like that. That is sort of, I mean, I'm not sure how games are made, but it would be nice for the developers to be like, okay, well, I think sometimes maybe it did sort of put you back in the same location, but sometimes it'll whack you up north. And if the whole purpose of this jumping around thing is to make your characters feel that they're real and they have actual lives, that's sort of tugged away from the immersion factor a little bit, purely because how can one person be there in 1 second and then the next second they're sort of up north? It just doesn't make sense. I think the fact that there's no loading times at all, like you got the initial load time and then it goes straight from your real world to the over the top view, and you see characters talking to each other, and you walk into the cutscene. That's a fantastic idea. I think it's one of my favorite sort of things which were implemented here, and that's because as soon as you hear that you see the loading screen, you're out of the game. And if you play continuously, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but all our favorite times playing video games are the times where you haven't died for a long time. If you haven't died for a long time, you're right in the video game, and that's why we play video games. It's just that much more fun. But coming back to sort of how I started this video, I think that just exploring the sort of whole area, and I mean, seriously, you're just like on the beach or whatever, you got like the sun setting, you're on a jet ski and you're listening to some pop music or whatever. It's like, wow, man, this is really crazy. And it's, I guess it's obviously it's not like real life. You can't have the perfect sunset every single day in Los Angeles in reality, of course. But within the game, it's fun that they do purposely put all these weather cycles in there, and literally every sunset looks fantastic. The countryside. And there's also sort of these hidden Easter eggs hidden throughout the game. I think there's a mystery called the Mystery of Mount Chiliad. You can look it up on reddit.com. And the idea is that on top of Mount Chiliad, you've got this sort of thing underneath one of the cable car sort of rooms. There's a picture of like the mountain. It has like an Easter egg, like an egg hatching, like some sort of Tyrannosaurus Rex drawing, and like a jetpack. And the idea is, we think that somehow you can unlock like an Easter egg, which is either like some sort of dinosaur robot or something crazy like that, or even a jetpack. And we're sort of trying to work out what this mystery is, but it involves like 100% completion of the game. So what you can do is you can go and download like 100% completion file if you don't have time to complete it yourself. And there's a couple of Easter eggs, like, you can go up to the top of Mount Chiliad once you've got 100%, and when it's raining, and you see like a hologram UFO there. Or another one is you fly above this sort of mural of, like in northeast of Sandy Shores, where you've got these this sort of painting on the ground saying, save us all or whatever, and then you fly directly up with a helicopter and you see like a UFO, I think, with FIB written on it. Another thing, I think, under the military base, Fort Zancudo or whatever it is, like people noticed there was like strange flashing lights at 3 a.m. So, once again, if you have 100% file completion, you fly right up the top there, on top of the military base, and you've got this actual bizarre, evil-looking UFO. And so, the speculation is, can you actually, control like this UFO in the game, stuff like that. And there's all these nice little touches, like there's like apparently like a murder mystery in the game, and some people have reportedly like found dead bodies in the ocean. There's a crashed UFO in the ocean. You can see like ghosts and stuff. There's this weird, Bigfoot sometimes, and there's the ghost in the woods, stuff like that. All these little details sort of make you want to play the game more. I think it's a good idea to sort of, want to play the game more after you finished it. And yeah, man, like, Los Santos, do I want to actually live in this crazy, superficial city? Probably not, but am I enjoying playing this game? Yes, I did. I did enjoy playing it overall. Just to summarize with 4 minutes to go, I think that the story was pretty good, but I think that, and as ambitious as Rockstar is, implementing, bouncing between different characters during a mission is okay, but I think that this is sort of reminding me of sort of the Dark Knight syndrome, where you just have so many characters there. It's hard to sort of focus and dive into the history of one. It would be cool to see like all this history behind these characters, and like I said, my favorite part about them is all these characters are very strong. Franklin arguably maybe not so much, but seeing them butt heads, knowing that these characters are just so like crazy in their own sort of unique way, that's what actually makes the story very funny. The story is hilarious. I mean, when Trevor like steals that military helicopter out of the base in Fort Zancudo, and he makes like a phone call, and then Michael's like, how you doing, Trevor? And he's like, well, for a guy that just stole a top secret military helicopter out of a military base, I'm not doing too bad. Those quick-witted, sharp one-liners are fantastic, and the whole interplay of the phone calls between the characters, like, oh, what are you up to? And then, oh, I'm just over here delivering this truck. The sort of 24-esque sort of feel to the game, bouncing between the characters. And again, even though you're that glitch sometimes where you bounce between the characters, and the character's in some weird location when it doesn't make sense, they would have bounced to this whole different location. I think that's a great idea, because it does sort of make you feel like these characters are going about their lives. And seriously, like, one time I switched to Trevor yesterday, in fact, and he was on the top of a Mount Chiliad somewhere, dressed in like these weird boots and like this like woman's dress, and like with pantyhose or something on his head or something, and then just like listening to like a pop song, like with this motorbike in the rain. It's one of the most bizarre situations ever, and it sort of does it does add realism to these characters. You switch to Franklin, he's polishing his motorbike. You switch to Michael, he's passed out in his car or whatever near a park. Great. I think that online should maybe lend some sort of addition to this mystery of Mount Chiliad, as I mentioned before. But nevertheless, like I said, these sort of high sort of setup things where you can select different characters and stuff, interesting idea, but I think they should have pushed that a little bit further, made it like a little bit more detailed. I think that having sort of 3 storylines is as excited as I was to have it. I think that it was a little bit too ambitious, and trying to put all these characters in the game, on top of these 3, especially like your FIB agents, Devlin and that other crazy yoga guy. I think that the story sort of became a little bit too diluted. But like I said, these characters, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the characters, just the amount of characters, I think, and the fact that there wasn't sort of adequate time sort of spent between these characters didn't really push the storyline as far as I want to. Like I said, like I want to see more stuff. What happens with Tracy and his son James and stuff like that, and like the sort of, I guess, fallout from sort of what happens to these characters sort of later on. But yeah, I mean, my ending, like I didn't choose to kill Michael or Trevor, sort of push that car off into the sunset, and then boom, the music kicks in. I think that it would be nice to sort of, I think that the ending credit music is important. I would have loved to have heard the official song, the Chain Gang of 1974 Sleepwalking play there at the end. But it's sort of, you have like a Grand Theft Auto 5 logo, just like Red Dead Redemption. But yeah, fair enough. I think that overall, I can't really complain about this game, because this game is, I think overall, above all else, it is the vastness of this game and how it just feels like a real world. And you got the city You got the desert. You can do whatever you want. You can lose yourself in this game. I think at the end of the day, that's why we play these games for, is, you know, to have fun and explore and do whatever the hell we want without, you know, any actual real life repercussions, which is the case with Grand Theft Auto 5. I think overall 10 out of 10. I mean, you have to be perfect to give it a game of 10 out of 10. So I think that the hype machine was on overdrive for that. So, you know, IGN.com, fair enough, give it a 10 out of 10. I think realistically, this game probably gets between an 8 and an 8.5 out of 10. So that's my final sort of, I guess, thoughts on Grand Theft Auto 5. A little bit sort of storyline fell to the wayside. A couple of interesting concepts initialized gameplay wise, but they needed to sort of tweak them a little bit further. I think I'll just go watch the Breaking Bad finale now and Homeland or something. So yeah, good times. That's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. Alright, goodbye everybody.